Flat of British, Martin speaking. Welcome people, welcome to my channel on what is a beautiful day in sunny Wales. So I got UAP here with me, guys. We have been blessed in Flat of British with the company of a UAP channel. Welcome my friend, brother.
Hey, good to talk to you.
Yeah man, been a long
nice
time.
To be here.
Yeah man. Well, thanks.
Be here in Cardiff, in spirit.
Costa del Cardiff. Yeah, really nice. Yeah.
Uncomfortably close to the Queen, right?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Funny you should mention the Queen. Yeah, she did a speech here just 2 days ago, and she basically was like to the state in Parliament concerning our exit from Europe, which has happened. She just sort of clicks her fingers. The whole world just got to do. And in the speech she said, well, we're just about to save oogles amount of money from exiting Europe, and they have to pay us straight away. Can't remember the exact figure, but it's like $500 billion. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so she says, and with this money we'll be able to now have a space program. Yes, that's right, an ambitious space program. So
oh my,
that was the last words she came out with. I was like, oh my. So that's that money gone to the wind. Then that's for you lot.
Well, that's to fight the space aliens, you know.
Mm.
They're just moving forward that plan, it seems like.
Yeah. So yeah. It's a strange time, you know. Things are moving on, I feel, with the way that the government and, you know, the world control system is sort of gearing up, if you like. The climate is changing, and the whole of humanity feels something's afoot, coming. It's a very, with this new, you know, information era. I think that's really sinister, because that's been suggested by the Prime Minister of Britain only this week, that you should be worried about, you know, digital Armageddon. Basically, they switch off everyone's devices, all the electric, everything, and everything comes to a swift halt. They can do it. So he's threatening that, but you know. Yeah,
they're talking about a world. I just came across this for the first time, well, like a week ago. Was a world grid, a world power system. Because I was researching how, you know, like electricity is transferred long distances, and the towers have these different ratings, and then there's this one rating that basically was never used until recently, where the voltage is stepped up so high that it allows it to travel an extreme distance, like thousands of miles.
Yeah.
And that opens it up to having a worldwide grid, which would just not be a good idea for so many reasons. But you know,
it's very similar to what happened with Tesla, wasn't it? Because you know, he had to have jump stations from New York to Buffalo, something like every mile or something, to take the direct current there. But with the AC, it didn't need jump stations. It went longer distances. This was apparent argument with it. So it's like an updated version of that, isn't it? It's really strange.
Yeah, it's way. They just keep wanting to centralize it, and that may be the reason that they used AC early on, because DC they had to have, you know, the individual power stations everywhere, and that was working fine. Of course, that's the inherited electrical system that we got, and I don't know how much you've looked into like the electric trains and trolleys and all that stuff, but that's something I've been looking at lately. And they're all DC, they're all about the same everywhere, all over the world, between 600 to maybe 750 volts. Some are as low as like 550 or 500, but very few. And then very few are more than, let's say, 900. Maybe there's one that's like 1100 volts DC. And I don't know what the safety is on that. I'm sure it's not pleasant to to contact or whatever. But I think it's interesting. It's one of those tidbits of information that that goes in and gets locked away to help me decide if something's, you know, old world or not. And I've come across it quite a few times, that they use DC and they use these types, these typical voltages, and Yeah, but it was all, I think it was all local, you know, but they don't really talk about the how the electricity was generated back then.
No.
You know what I mean?
They don't.
When I looked at the Chicago World's Fair, I went way in depth on that one. And the whole time I didn't know that they had another one, you know, a few years later, or not a few, something like 25 years later, something like that. But anyway, at the 1893 World's Fair, they had the power station building that generated the electricity, but they didn't really discuss how all that electricity was generated, you know. And they kind of intimated that it was by burning coal, but in all the pictures you see no plumes of black smoke. When you burn coal, you have to have black smoke, right? Or at least some smoke. But that whole thing was powered somehow, you know, by means, I think, geothermal. I think it was steam power just straight from a geothermal spring. And yeah, and they made what they did. It's ingenious how they hide some of the stuff. They put all these huge machines in there. The louder, the better. Crammed them all in, so that they had the hall open so everybody could see them generating the electricity. But no human could stand it. It was so loud. Yeah. It was probably way louder than the Who concert. You know, the or whatever it was, the loudest concert. You know, yeah, the people couldn't even go in and do very many sketches at all. They just couldn't stand it. So there's hardly any documentation on it.
That's interesting. Yeah, he kept them up with the loud noise. They wouldn't spend any long time scrutinizing the machine. Very clever. Yeah,
and you know, you've looked at these machines, right? I mean, they're huge, and they're made of, like, I guess it's iron.
Well, what about the machines necessary to bore these machines? You know, I've been looking at some of the early, you know, ironclads, or you know, did a little bit later, some of these ships, and it is absolutely beautiful machine work, especially with some of these big cannon, you know, and this, you know, these ships, you know, up to 50,000 tons of, you know, beautiful steel. I'm thinking to myself, all right, you got the steel works in Philadelphia, etc., but what about the machining? What size of plant in 1850s? When everything is covered in mud, you're building the apparent developing world, all of it at this time, okay? You're laying the underground, you know, like only 30 years or so less than apparent development of the train. You know, this rubbish Stephenson's rocket of 1830, apparently the first train, which is ridiculous. 50 years later, they got pneumatic trains, tubes, shooting trains through New York. Only 50 years after that train is an insult to our intelligence. I was thinking about this, you know, with the digging out of the underground, Paris, London, Moscow's, New York's. No mistake that they all got dug exactly the same decade, or started the same decade, okay? So information of them down there. Now, information must have leaked through to some of these workmen who've seen this stonework. So I think what they would have done is what they've done with the British underground, is to just attribute it to the Romans. This is a Roman sewer system, the brickwork you're looking at. So they would have had, like, ways of getting out of that as well. You know, I've studied, you know, Paris footage. This stuff's being dug out. This system was down there already. It was. You know?
Yeah, and there are some things they couldn't get out of the ground, like the steam locomotive in New York City. You know about that one?
No.
Yeah, there's a steam locomotive with one or two train cars on it in an abandoned, apparently never used underground tunnel, really deep, you know. I don't know, 40 meters or something deep. And you know how heavy those locomotives are.
Yeah.
And so I think it's steam, maybe it's electric. So, but it looked like a steam locomotive. It's just a big one. And the story is that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, because he was an invalid, you know, from whatever, polio supposedly.
Yeah, polio.
It's probably all fake. Yeah, they couldn't show him not being able to walk, so he had to come in through a secret entrance, and so they supposedly came up with this major contrivance just to get him into the New York hotel or whatever it was, that wherever the president usually shows up and speaks at some annual function. Mm-hmm. I don't buy it for a minute. And they have the train car all set up, you know, and it's kind of comical because the train car looks pretty difficult to get into. How far would it even travel? It's just an absolutely ridiculous story, but they add elements to make it even more preposterous, you know, and it just gets to be so ridiculous that that's why somehow people accept it, you know. But yeah, so they couldn't dig everything out.
No.
I found out about in Seattle. I had some subs write to me about the fact that one of them was working on the Big Bertha project.
Wow.
And he was privy to being right near the boreholes. You know, I don't know if you know about this, but they have like an overland freeway over in Seattle because there's a lot of water. There's a lot of, you know, islands, different things. And then the city's pretty cramped in. So when they needed a freeway, they just built it over top. But it's dilapidated. So they figured, well, you know, it's a tsunami earthquake risk. Why don't we just dig a tunnel? Because that's a good idea.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I don't understand it. But anyway, so they have this Big Bertha project with the big, you know, the worm drilling machine that goes through, and it hit something, and it was just a dead stop. And whatever it was that they hit, they kept saying boulder. It has to be a boulder. And so they have to go in, and the process is to dig some boreholes ahead of it and see how big the boulder is, and then drill down and try to crack it to pieces, and then you can get it out of the way. But when they drilled down, they were pulling up cores that had like engineered materials in it, you know, steel and stuff like that. So like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on here. There's some voids and everything. So they drilled some manhole size ones and lowered rope ladders down, whatever, and people went down. And the guy who wrote to me, he didn't go down himself, but he was right there when somebody came up and they were telling him, and they're like, it's a whole city. It's an entire city down there. It's streets, shops, and it goes as far as, you know, we couldn't explore even close to the ends of it. It just was long tunnels like roads. Oh. And the news never reported that, you know. So they couldn't possibly dig everything out. So somewhere under these cities there's probably all the answers, you know what I mean? Just you can't let them get to it first, I guess.
Well, look at that.
But you know, that's why they fill in these tunnels whenever they find them, which is just, in a way it's crazy, but in another way, I wouldn't want one of these tunnels going into my basement, you know, that connects to endless other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if sinkholes are something to do with all the underground system. I think it's more vast. You know, I've read old documents, Mundus Subterraneous, say that there's tunnel systems the entire plane over. You know, there's one running from apparent London to Turkey or Istanbul. You know, cross continents, these underground systems, you know, and people say that you can drive trucks or trains from, you know, east coast to west coast of America, no problemo, underground. So they're probably just using older. Everything is older, like this thing here in the mud, older. Yeah.
I found on one of these apps that maps out roads and stuff like that. It uses as a lot of different sources, including user data, like user location data based on cell phone towers. I found a whole bunch of people apparently were driving along the same exact path through one of the Great Lakes.
I got you. Wow.
And it happens to match up with this map I came across that shows like a proposed tunnel supposedly, through the same Great Lake.
Yeah.
So I think there's a tunnel there, and it's I don't know. I might be getting a little bit off here, but sometimes at night I can feel the ground shake, and it's the same way it shakes from a train that is pretty far away, but I can detect when that train goes by. I can both feel it and hear it. There are many times I feel that, like, similar to that kind of vibration coming from the ground. There's no reason it should be. There's no activity, no construction going on at night, anywhere near me. And I can't hear the train, So I wonder if it's an underground thing,
I think so. I had this thing in my head right the way through childhood. I think it was a film that I once watched where I thought the Chinese were tunneling under us all the time. So that vibration you're talking about, that I was aware of as well. I was like, every time I felt it through my feet, and thinking, is anyone else really noticing this acoustic? Because I was pretty perceptive as a child. And no one did, obviously. But and I used to think that. That's what used to spring into my mind. Oh, it's the Chinese. They're tunneling. They're going to come out.
And we know these tunnels were around. Like, I knew about the European ones a long time ago. Somehow I learned about the one that goes north-south all the way through Europe, or they thought it did. It's amazing how nobody has any curiosity to actually figure it out, but they just kind of leave it to the mysteries, alongside the wacky ones as well, just to get people to write it off. But in the U.S., we have all the same things, and it's just amazing how many years I went where I thought, and I still catch myself referring to Europe as the old country when over here everything's equally probably pretty close to as old. And we also have the tunnels, and it's amazing the explanations they give. Like in New York, they built a tunnel for an electric train system in the 1800s, and they did the tunnel and then they left it. It was like one of these excuses of disagreements and funding and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it did in my city. I've got photographs of the underground being started in my city, and they just gave up with the money. And same with the Channel Tunnel. I suspect about that. What I didn't like about it was this same thing they said with the Trans-Siberian Railway line and the line that went across America, is they start one side, start another, get the mathematics exactly right, and meet in the middle. Right?
Yeah.
And knock a hole through and shake hands. I was like, But there was if you should research it, there was a Victorian tunnel, like literally a quarter of a mile from the entrance point to that. And there's two shafts, not one. And I'm thinking, they could have followed an old course of an older system, to get the handshake going. Same with the railways. It's just, I'm thinking, is your maths that good and you never ever miss by a foot?
Right. And with the U.S. rail system, I looked into that because I got on the thread. You mentioned about them not having quarries, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, let's say there was a quarry. How would they get the stone there? And when I randomly selected a town hall or city hall, and I picked a state house. Actually, it was of Iowa. And, I went through that and uncovered the fact that they built it in Iowa City where all the people lived. And then they moved the capital to Des Moines when Des Moines had exactly 200 citizens. That number keeps coming up, 200. But there was no rail line there, yet they built a city or a state house, another state house, because they just finished the one. They'd used it for about 8 years when they decided to pick up and move. And it's glorious. It's probably the most glorious state house that you can imagine, and it's better than the Capitol building of the United States. And anyway, they had no rail lines, they had no bridge. They had to I've seen it. It's crazy. Portage it across and float it. Yeah,
I've seen inside. It's
just nuts.
One of the flat earthers, Josh, who's Authentic Intent, he does like activism. So So we decided to do it inside there, and he took us on a little tour. My God, that place is so heavily Masonic coded, Phoenician coded.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just. But yeah, I see what you mean. You know, they had giant, marble pillars, different color marble too. UAP, you know.
And they do this fluting in it. I don't even know how they do that.
Well, what the machining necessary, you know? And they, like you say, look, you know these streets, how broad they are, you know. You know, to me, all these buildings are partially sunk, but how broad they are. Why would they need, when you've only got like little people, horses and cars, these massive, broad, long avenues through, you know, all of the
in those bumpers, you know, like the horses are gonna come barreling in towards your marble and stone building and knock through that wall, which a wrecking ball just it laughs at wrecking balls, you know.
It's crazy.
And they have it to protect against the wooden carriage, you know, if you have runaway horses. The horses got spooked by a snake, and now they're going, oh no, and you cut the harness, and then your carriage is rolling at 18 miles an hour and right into. But good thing you have this stone like pillar. What's the term for those?
For column.
Well, like the ones that are on the ground. Balustrade. Yeah.
Yeah,
thank God.
That's the thing. Right, here's a question.
Thank God that's it.
You'll love this one. And it got me thinking last night. My friend Mel said to me, she's like, was looking at these giant doors, and the brackets were really, really high up in this old film. And it was like, the giant doors, they're massive high. But what you find in a lot of these sort of buildings, okay, is the balustrade is not high. Or in the railings are just not that high. And in the staircases going into some of these buildings, they're just normal hand height, so they're not like giant height. But what we noticed then is most of these Victorian or Tartarian buildings, the central, apart from, you know, city halls and stuff, like you just mentioned, will have a wooden staircase, carved wooden staircase with the balustrade and the ball at the end for you to slide down. I can't help thinking that these were later replacements, you know, and they must have been bigger. They must have been. Check that out.
Yeah. The things we never find, the bathrooms, and then we don't find the furniture, and then the stairways and the domes are always replaced. I haven't figured out why the domes are always replaced.
Don't know. I've seen the ladders going up to them all. Somebody said in my comments as a suggestion that they were taking tech off the dome. You know, because you see in like Moscow, them empty cities, but what you do see is ladders going up to roofs. No people, so they're messing around on roofs. It's like I've 3 or 4 buildings in one area has got ladders. Yeah,
that's become a thing. I call it ye olde ladder lean. You know what that's from? I mean, I noticed that too, and I was thinking it, and I hadn't said it that much. And then I was watching one of your videos, and you were looking at I don't remember the city, but it was kind of a high view down in the city, and there were ladders everywhere. Yeah. You started counting them. You're like, "There's a ladder. Oh shit! There's a ladder. Yeah. There's a ladder. Oh my God! There's a ladder." And you know, so then I came up with the term for it, ye olde ladder lean, because they always do it. Well, and I know it's symbolic. But there's a lot to it. You know, stairway to heaven type thing, that symbology. But then it's also functional because they literally couldn't get to certain points that you need to get to make the building function or to make things happen around there. 'Cause they had removed the stairways, and that's another reason I think maybe for some of it. But yeah, the domes, if they removed it for tech, I wonder if it's because the tech was perceivable. You know, there's a channel, I think it's called Global Vision. The guy's
I know him. Yeah, talking about guy. Yeah, top job. Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, and he talks about the domes, and if they always have something blocking the middle. And I want to try this now, but I guess if you stand in the middle of the dome of an old building that hasn't been altered too much, that you can sense like a heightened energy or something like that. So I don't know, but maybe it's something like that. I've seen in some pictures and in a lot of drawings of domes with the antenna or the aerial or whatever, the weather vane or the lightning rod coming out of the top of the flagpole, but the light coming out of it is lighting up. Like if it's a foggy day when they made the drawing or the picture,
right,
you can see that there's light, and it's not just the sun glinting off. The sun would glint off the dome as well. You don't see them drawing, or you don't see that in the photograph, but just the antenna is glowing. And then there's that video from what's the name of that town in Asia, with the temple.
Oh, in Cambodia, it was in Phnom Penh. That temple in the Cambodian capital, Phnom Penh.
Right. Yeah, that's it. And it's lit up, and my gut feeling with that was that it was legit. I mean, obviously, normally I would think that's CGI. If it is CGI, it was done like with some knowledge.
No, I think that's how it would behave and how it would look.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and the sound that goes with it was very interesting too.
And then I've seen,
and there was specific tones as well.
The birds as well. They do a vortex around these places. You know, I think some of them are still active. You got me thinking about that dome now. When I went in the Parthenon in Rome, they got like a big hole. It was raining when I was in there, called the Oculus, and I can't. It's in my mind now. I'm thinking, hang on a minute. I'm wondering if that was like. Not always a hole. You know, it didn't actually make sense to me. I was thinking, like, you know, wow, the rain's coming in. This is crazy that I'm in a puddle inside a building, you know, with all of this Bernini art all around me and these beautiful...
Yeah, they weren't that daft, you know, like, gosh, it's leaking, you know.
Yeah, but I looked into it, the Oculus as well then, trying to define what it was all about, you know. There's all sorts of ideas, you know, the escaping of evil spirits, etc. It's talked about in Angels and Demons book as well, the Oculus. There's a little bit of a chapter on it there, you know, to define why it is there in the first place. But, you know, I'm thinking something taken like this.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I had always thought, you know, through formal education, whatever type thinking, that it was to let the sun in and they kind of use it as a calendar and they could track the analemma or whatever, but there's no reason for that, you know. I've seen similar things though, which this may be part of it, because what is the Parthenon even for?
Well, it was a pagan temple originally, and there's only one door in. There's only one door. There's no, you know, one door in, one door out. It's the same door. It's a massive, huge door. So originally, apparently, in all of these little cubicles they got all around were pagan gods. Okay. And then when, I suppose, I'm just guessing, Constantine took this place, it was filled with Catholic deities, etc., which it is to today. But they're all, you know, you've got Teresa in there, you've got all of these absolutely just the best, you know, quality of architecture on display in this place. You know, it's just the most.
But it was pulled from somewhere else, probably.
Oh, for sure, all of it. You know, I've studied Bernini. There's no way this guy is just knocked out this much work in a lifetime. Anyway,
here's a thought, and I'm just spitballing here, but I just saw a thing about these Egyptian. Just a second, let me close this window. This Egyptian holographic, three-dimensional negative. And it's I don't know if it was like carved wood or some kind of soft stone imprintation, whatever, and it was painted. It looked like it was like gilded with gold, maybe, and it may have had different oils applied to it, whatever, to make it kind of iridescent. Now, when you have the light shining from above, in the original location, it had like a Oculus type thing in a much smaller scale above it. When you have the light shining from above, it lights up an image in 3 dimensions that is a positive image, even though it's like it's a cavity, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it is truly amazing. I wish I don't have a better video of it, and I didn't even really post much of the video I had. It was only 240p. But I've seen these types of things before, but not one that had an image pop out. But I've heard that there are these hieroglyphs. You know, most of the hieroglyphs that you see when you go to Cairo are fake. They're new, they're junk, and they're literally plastered over, you know, a couple inches thick over like a wall that has been ground down. But apparently, if you go to the real hieroglyphs, the old ones, if you step back from it and you do the magic eye thing, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do the magic eye thing all the time. I listen to healing music while doing magic eye pictures. I can get them in an instant.
Yeah.
In an instant.
Yeah, yeah. You just kind of do a longer focus and relax a little bit, and you can see it. Yeah. The stereo image, and it comes out in 3D. And apparently, the hieroglyphs. If you want to actually read the hieroglyphs, you have to look at it that way, and then it pops out. And
that makes sense.
it makes way more sense, and it's way more impressive.
Three-dimensional sort of construct, like they say with the Torah in the Bible code. They say the same with that, don't they? They say there's like the Bible matrices. You know, then physicists, the mathematicians trying to pick it apart in the Bible code, where they say the Torah had all the information for every single person in this realm that ever will be, has been, and their whole futures, like the whole of our reality, all in the codex. And they did like a mathematical code, and they were pulling out like, you know, basically history changing predictions. They managed to avert the assassination of Netanyahu, who was going to go to a trip to Damascus. They said, oh, it just showed up in the Bible code, you're going to get killed, don't go. Apparently they stopped him going.
But does it change then after they stop it, and then they go back and look at it and it's gone?
Do you know what? You're right. That's exactly what they said. And when they went looking back, they did first thing.
Because that's the only way it would make sense.
Yeah,
you know.
And it said, basically, both their names came up. Right, in the same slip code as you averted this, and you've changed history, and they're both their names, and they were like looking at one another, going, "Oh, we changed the timeline." So yeah, they did as well. You know, apparently, you know, can confirm all of this is true. But yeah, that's in the Bible code books by Michael Drosnin. Really interesting. Yeah, really. Yeah. You know, Newton spent his lifetime looking at it, so. Might be something there. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, I just wanted to. I have to say one thing while we're talking about Egypt and all that stuff, because I haven't looked into Cairo and all that much. The pyramids, because that's been done a million times. Yeah. But I came across some stuff, and I noticed some things that I hadn't heard anybody else say, and I wonder, you know, over time you'll come up with an answer that I'd like to hear of what you think about it. But I noticed with the tunnels, obviously they have it closed off to the public when they find these, everything there, you know, all the rooms, everything, King Tut, all that. And they have the tunnels reworked, obviously, before they get in, and they grind off the real hieroglyphs, put on fake ones. But I noticed also that they do two things. They redo all the stairs, and they raise the floor level a lot, you know, because the tunnels were for the people of the stature of the time. And most of them, now they may have had some smaller openings to prevent access, which we could get through because we're just puny compared to them. But in general, the floor is never real. It's never the authentic original floor, not even close. And if you look at like the archways and everything, you know how an archway typically is, and then you have your straight walls until you get to the floor. And there's typical proportions that are found there, you know, throughout time and everywhere. But here in these structures, the archways sometimes are still arching when they hit the floor, and they do it to such an extreme that when you go through that, one of the takeaways that people have, and they go through, is, my gosh, I had to lean over so I didn't hit my head on the ceiling so many times, and they try to work that sensory impression in that you know, you're every bit as big as these, maybe bigger than they were, when in fact it's quite the opposite is the case, I believe. And I noticed that, and then I just looked through a few things, and it was like confirmed over and over again. But anyway, I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
About it. You know, I've seen like the alterations on it all. I've got a completely alternative set of hieroglyphics from Lead Atlas, which apparently are quite valid. So these ideographic ones are being presented at the moment, and only like, you know, deciphered by the Rosetta Stone, apparently Napoleon's troop or whatever, who's gone to look for some sort of translation and literally come back with it. Ka-ching. He had a lucky day, didn't he? So that's for our reality in the hieroglyphics, even though I've got, and in a book that I've written down, copied, just in case I lose the virtual form, a set of hieroglyphics. They're partial ideographic. Now, with that language thing, you know, a lot of these older traditions, they're using these signs where, you know, there's like 20 different words for snow in some sort of cultures. You don't need, you know, phonetic words. And, you know, with some of these pictures, that's all you need. You don't need to develop the English word in your mind, like for cat, C-A-T, cat. I see a picture of a cat. You won't even have to do that mental construct in your mind, which the Phoenicians have done, thought form. You just look at the picture and you know what it is. You won't even have to say the word cat. Oh, it's that thing. Or even say that. So they've taken us away from that, you know, where we're wasting brain matter on identifying with the Phoenician construct. It's really deep what they've done with language. It's really sinister with spells. I'm really not happy with it.
Spelling.
Well, it is. Well, you know, when they say, are you spelling right? You know, when you're in school, it is spells. But, you know, I was thinking about it. You know, I was identifying my thoughts. You know, it's something I do. It's a psychological exercise. And I was thinking, you know, when you have daft thoughts come in, I'm like, that's not me. You know, that feels like it's coming in from somewhere else. Like, you know, that's just stupid. So, like, just kill that off, you know? And I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm actually talking in my brain in English. You with me? So I'm doing the same phonetic thing in my mind. In my, you know, we don't look at things like a lighter and we just pick it up and we identify it. You know, we change these things into words. It's just
it's if you look at what somebody is saying and you look at their body language. It's always the body language that is the truth, and it's the words they're using that is the lie. And when I go back and look at these things, like some of the most ridiculous things, like the space programs or 9/11, whatever, and there are people supposedly explaining whatever nonsense it is that's being right. It's just right in front of them. It's just something where, if you had your senses and you weren't enchanted or under some kind of a spell, you would know right away that, for example, thin sheets of aircraft aluminum cannot cut through steel reinforced concrete. It just cannot.
Yeah, exactly.
But they know it, and if you mute the television or whatever and you watch, you can see they're laughing at how stupid it is. But you unmute it and you listen to them, and they're saying how real it is, and that's what they're actually going to behave based on and believe, because they are absolutely enchanted. It's like a fairy tale children's story in my mind. Yeah. That's literally what it is. The level that the insanity is, you know, and we talked about this before, but I'm not even sure how exactly I broke out of that nonsense, you know, like believing that I mean, I've been into science and engineering pretty much from the beginning. I can't explain how I ever believed that the Voyager satellite could send a signal that could be received here on Earth. No way.
I know.
And they take it, you know, farther. You think they'd say, well, we broadcast with twice as much power as the most powerful radio station in the world, as if that would even matter.
No,
you know, with the inverse square law, it wouldn't matter. You're so far away you know, it's
Yeah.
there
Just
aren't
a little
even
nuclear
ways to
generator.
comprehend it.
They're supposed to lasted weeks or months, and it's lasted, all these years later. And it's just that
Yeah.
little gust of life recently, and send us one last.
Yeah, they remote started it in 2016, like a remote car start. They remote started it, and somehow they knew how to fire off a sequence of something like 37, bursts from the different liquid rocket. Oh gosh,
it's nuts.
Yeah, and I just have to throw my hands up, looking back, thinking about it now, and say, I was under an enchantment, because
Same.
I cannot believe that I would ever be that disconnected from reality. But there's no question that disconnect from reality exists, because if I walk across the street right now and ask somebody about the Voyager and how does it broadcast, and I could tell them that it has the broadcasting power of a refrigerator light bulb. And by the time it reaches here, it's thousands of times lower than the noise threshold. Yet they can receive the signal, and they know everything. And it sends pictures that way too. 1977 technology. They'll just say, well, NASA is really smart, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, so they believe in magic, because that's what that would have to be, So if I say you're under a spell, you're under some kind of enchantment if you believe that, because it is impossible. It is not possible in this universe, realm, whatever, and with these physical laws, it's not. And then they would say, what you say that I'm enchanted, you believe in magic, you're crazy. And I just, but I can look back at myself, see myself that way, and I do not know, Martin, I just don't know how I got out of it exactly.
What point?
But we talked about different ideas, but whatever that is, whatever that thing is, that's what needs to happen, and I've been told by subscribers and people in comments and gotten a lot of letters about them waking up, watching my stuff.
Same.
And other people's, and so maybe it's just calling it out. Maybe that's all it takes to break that Phoenician,
spell,
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly the same. Look, the full context of the whole mechanism only became apparent to me probably only about 2 years ago. And I mean after Flat Earth Awakening and everything else, and the finding out about the fake history. I mean, the full aspect of it all is so. It's all of our reality. Our language. They create thought forms.
Yeah.
It's every aspect, this magic spell with space. I've seen it, and the weird thing about it is that knee-jerk response. They get all upset because you might be this sparkly little magic Disney film that's going on in their head of space might be affected. Yeah, and they don't even see it. It's a nightmare. It's a weird, just like a Disney film in a lot of ways. I mean, I like. Sure, some Disney films or whatever, but some of them are nightmarish if you really look at it. It's
just
all
like
magic as well, isn't it? Always, look at Fantasia. It's all about spells and conjuring, and it tells you a lot in that film. It's a hard film to watch, though. But for kids really.
Yeah, it's weird. That's who they focus on, and that that explains a lot, but. As an adult, even if you've been through, the public programming, schools, all that stuff, I went through all that stuff, and I was still able to think independently. But I always had a thorn in my side for as long as I can remember, learning about different things. Like things just seemed, the word I used was bullshitty. I blamed myself. I fell for this idea that. If you don't fully understand why this stuff is what's being taught, then you must not be as smart as the people who, figured it all out already.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't sit well with me.
Same.
But that I had nothing else to go by, so I just kind of was like, okay, well, everything else tells me otherwise, but maybe I'm not, not a rocket scientist or whatever. I just can't.
I only thought it this morning. I was like, people, they were saying to me a year or two ago in the last convention before last, you got a real problem with Brian Cockless Cox, haven't you, Matt? I was like, yeah, I have. He's a lying get, isn't he? I'm not putting up with any of it, and I want to have a word with him about it as well, which I did. And they said we might be able to fix you up with an interview with him.
Oh, yeah?
I feel like that.
Oh,
this
cool.
Was back then. This was back then, right? Ahead of another convention, and I was like, yeah, definitely. I was thinking about it this morning. I'm thinking, no wonder that didn't come through, because he would have been hit every single bullshit aspect that would have come out of his apparent professor, physicist, actor's mouth. I would have demolished. There's not many aspects of all of these subjects I haven't got a handle on right now. And this guy knows shit all. When he went on his program, he's saying, these flat earthers are so stupid, and even my son could see curvature in a boat going over. And leaving it at that. So that's it. Is it we're living on a fucking globe because your son's seen a boat go over? Let's talk about perspective. Get your P900 up. Any other reasons? Nothing else going on? Yeah. Don't even worry about it. Just leave it at that. So this is how they approach everything. Just very childish notions. This is a physicist, mind.
Yeah. Well, supposedly.
But
he's real physicists, even like university professors and stuff can't afford Maybach car,
Yeah.
but Cryan Box drives a Maybach. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the name of the car right. It's so expensive, It's like, how do you get that? Well, but it's crazy. I get this question a lot, and I don't know if I have the answer, but just like how, like who is sitting around saying, the Earth, everybody has to believe that the Earth is a globe, and I'm going to pull money out of my pile of my vault, my huge pile of gold I have somewhere, and I'm going to pay Cryan Box to shill for the globe because it's so important to me that it's a globe. I don't know. Like how does it happen, or is it a subconscious, like visceral thing?
Yeah,
I haven't decided yet.
It might be just they're shitty people. I don't know. Maybe you should ask Joe Rogan this fucking exact question, because he wears this I'm a globe shill t-shirt, so he's like literally playing like fucking Freudian slips, or not even doing that. He's in your face with it. And
just gaslighting, yeah.
Gaslighting and thinking everyone's just like, and he needs talking to. Hopefully one day I'll talk to Eddie Bravo, who's going to have a word with him about all that shilly business. Anyway, but
yeah.
But yeah, what I think there might be one or two good controllers, because I just keep getting this feeling that this is coming out. There's just everybody's talking about it. The Globe Light Tour is going across Europe. It's in every European capital. Their TV networks are going there, every single city, and interviewing them. And then when they get back to Britain, it'll be on the whole mainstream, and then it'll hit the American news, then it'll be viral. This will last for weeks and weeks, and it will be all about flat Earth. We got front page of the British newspapers. We got somebody else really important this week, I can't recall who, came out in America. This stacks of people now willing to openly talk about flat Earth without any, 3 years ago, people were just like terrible about this subject, but now they've been forced, they've been forced to address it because there's so many people looking at it. So I feel that this paradigm is changing, is what I feel. Either time's running out and they're closing up shop for the winter.
They have everything absolutely nailed down so well that they don't even need to try to hide things. You know what I mean? Yet, no matter how hard they try to do damage control, they don't. It doesn't work for them anymore. And so it's like it's sometimes I think that way. That something fundamentally changed. maybe in 2012, maybe it was after.
No, then.
But something huge changed.
Then.
What's that?
Then 2012. I've sent to many friends. This, you know, I don't associate it with CERN or anything like that. But that day I was in work and I was checking my watch and I was thinking about the hour ahead in, you know, Switzerland and what have you. I was thinking, right, 1 minute, 2 minutes. I'll wait now. And I'm watching my, you know, for when it's apparently switching it on.
When was it? What are you talking about?
It was
the CERN thing,
2008.
or is it what date?
2012. Yeah, 2012.
Was it December or earlier for that?
I think it might be.
Do you know?
I'm thinking it was the 12th of December.
Okay.
I can't really remember.
Okay.
So I checked my watch and I just had this weird sort of feeling right through me at that moment. But it could have been my imagination, of course. I've got a vivid imagination. But that I would just been pulled off that Earth that I was just on, and now I'm on a completely separate one, and everyone else is still on that one. Sort of like a mirror image at that moment.
Yeah, it feels that way. I didn't have that feeling at the time, but
like, shit.
But things changed.
What was that?
Yeah, something changed around then, and I remember like the first thing that dawned on me, the major thing that got me going on this was. The reason I named my channel UAP was the UFO thing, and it was not that I saw one or anything like that, right? Which, if I had, it wouldn't have mattered, you know. It wouldn't have changed my worldview or anything, believe it or not. But that's just how I was at the time. But what changed was I saw a government thing where the government officially was on television talking about UFOs in the open and not just writing it off like I thought they would. And I'm thinking they're actually selling the idea that UFOs could be real, and I'd never seen that before. And that's when like I felt something major had changed, because I was if there's anything that's more reliable than government, you know, like, but they want to tax you. There are certain things government always does, always has, and the government typically never ever indulges in these kinds of out there theories and things like that. But then all of a sudden, they're the proponents pushing it, and I thought I have to get to the bottom of this, and I figured logically either the government is suddenly lying about that, which means they could be lying about everything, or UFOs are so real that there's going to be something that happens and the government knows about it, and so I'd better figure that out. And it turns out that it's both and neither at the same time. You know, like they're lying, and they're lying about UFOs, and there is something that is going to happen, but then it's not going to be at all. Excuse me, at all what they say it would be.
I think there was something going on. I think it's spiritual. I'm still under the impression that millions of people have been spiritually kidnapped, but that's just me. As children.
Yeah, it's like if you have a soul, you would hear things.
It's to do with the energetic
you'd hear things in the news or something that your government's doing, and you'd say, hold up, you know, what the hell are you talking about? You're doing this? No, that's not acceptable. But you see people just blank stare through that stuff like they don't have a soul. I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you on that totally.
Funny, you mentioned earlier to me about this anomalous, really interesting anomalous town or city in America that's just not even there. It's off grid. Remember, there's a Rockwood. Is it Rockwood?
Gosh, yeah, I'm not certain about the name of the city.
Rockford. I can't remember.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah, Rockford.
I was thinking Rockwell or something. Or are you looking at it?
No, these are just random shots of Tartary architecture in Petersburg at the moment.
Oh, I can't see your screen. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just not seeing it. Okay.
Yeah, I've been all along. I've just been going through slides of Tartary architecture and stuff. Like that.
Okay.
Which has been just scrolling through. I got so much stuff. I just opened another sort of Google Photos account. I think I'm just going to pile everything on there and get an independent somewhere for people to look. Because that photo drop's getting packed. I don't know whether you've looked on it. Flat Earth British think tank. So that's St. Petersburg. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with these boobs. They are all over antiquity. They have to be, like for transporting charge. You always get 2 bollards or pillars as well on entrances to bridges. And it's got to be to transfer charge over a bridge. And it was so massively broad as well, when they only got horse and carriage at that period. Always. Just crazy. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
I'm there. I'm not seeing the screen, so I'm trying to figure that out at the moment.
I'm interpreting it for you. Yeah, that's it. You said 75,000 population, and it's not even on any map because it's just because it's a science place. So how many places like that where they got these, large amounts of people that are not even on the map or on any transport network or you've talked about? There has to be more.
Well, out west, there are such huge swaths of land. 50% of it is government land west of the Mississippi, pretty much. I think it's really close in the U.S. So there's ample opportunity, without even having to go underground. And there's this fallacy that most people have, thinking that you can see all over the world through Google, and nobody could hide anything above ground, but and they seem to like it when people are talking about like the bunkers and that type of thing. But I think it's a lot. I'm sure that exists and is probably used that way. But I'm thinking that they could do a lot on the surface because there aren't satellite images, and if they do show, it's not going to be the real image and all that stuff.
Exactly. So they could get away with murder and put what they want there, really. Just think about it.
Yeah.
We're just looking at renderings, aren't we?
Yeah, and like tomorrow, there's 10:17 at 10:17 a.m. I think there's a massive drill.
Yeah, I posted last night. Yeah,
earthquake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
And so they could wipe out. I mean, look at what happened. Yeah, I don't want to talk about too much.
No, I think I know what you was going to say.
That city, and the cities, and the thing that gets me is like, what about social media? Like, wouldn't people say, "Hey, this entire part of my family that lived in that city, they're just not responding. What about you?" Oh, but they could filter that stuff out. You would never even know.
No, you wouldn't.
Like little pockets of people. They all think they're part of the 88. Oh, I knew one of the 88 people. Yeah.
2.7 million people, though, UAP. Think about that. That's just like, why would they rally so many people for an emergency earthquake drill? Because New Madrid has started murmuring in the last month and had a tremor and an earthquake yesterday or the day before. So now they're sort of panicking now. They've been spinning this yarn about Yellowstone, could be, a really bad event for America for so long. It's been this sort of thing, super volcanoes with, limited evidence, of super calderas, I'm saying. So I'm thinking, that, the Midwest has had this event, hasn't it? So, oh man. So yeah, rallying that is really a development, especially with the lack of knowledge that was with New Madrid. Now most people know about it, and then suddenly it's in the paradigm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder how much all of that is even true, because it is taught, like the San Francisco earthquake, 1906. I looked into that recently, and in the pictures, in the immediate vicinity, they have everything in place to show there was an earthquake. Bricks fell. Horses got knocked on the head, knocked out cold, or killed by the bricks falling. Horses look fine, but there's no blood or anything from the horses. But they have all this stuff. They even have tarps to catch future bricks that fall and all this stuff. And then you look down the road in the same picture, and there's not one speck of damage.
I'm aware. Yeah, that's completely right. It's crazy.
And it's just like the Japanese, the Fukushima, all that tsunami.
Not buying it.
That in the tsunami videos, I challenge you to find a tsunami video that shows earthquake damage in the same video.
Oh, right.
It's not there.
Okay.
There's no sign of an earthquake where the tsunamis happened.
Oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't put the two together. Oh, wow.
And then look more recently, you can look at Hurricane Dorian, and you have a hurricane that showed up on none of the buoys, or basically dodged the buoys at least, if it would have shown up. And then you have an unprecedented, unheard of storm surge that has a duration way longer than makes any sense to me. Because they had a 25-foot storm surge. To me, that's about the same thing as a tsunami. I mean, what's the tsunami in Japan? It was probably on average about 25 feet, maybe. It came all at once. The Hurricane Dorian was not that way, but there are a lot of similarities, and it's like, what the heck? If there's some kind of tech or whatever, I absolutely believe that they could trigger some kind of earthquake or similar type event. Absolutely.
No doubt.
But that's nothing new. But the evidence and like you said, the way things are kind of ramping up and heating up gets me kind of worried a little bit, but not too much.
Worry.
I don't feed the negative.
No, man, don't feed the negative. The worry is
not worried. That's not the right word. Just aware of it, like thinking.
I feel grateful.
Wondering.
I feel grateful for the knowledge. I think, the creators I feel blessed that I know, what they know about the true nature of this place. We don't know the dimensions, but we know it's flat. We know we're in a reset system. We know there's controllers, and we know this place is just like some sort of sick farm, where we treated like cattle, no difference. And, at the end of the stage show, they just bring in a new load of cattle, and it's just no different to a farm. I think George Orwell's Animal Farm pretty sums it up, this place. It's just,
Except that we know about it. In Animal Farm, they didn't really know, did they?
This is it.
Well, until it was too late, but it's not too late.
No.
So, yeah, but I've just been nothing but euphoric ever since.
Same.
Ever since I figured this stuff out, yeah.
I go through different stages, man. I go through like emotional wreck stages. I go through, I go like I the balance is strange for me. I get like euphoric like yourself. It's just blown away, just blown like that, constantly with it. Finding out about this civilization or what was going on, such a narrow window of time ago. And we're locked in narrow windows of time and can't look outside of that window. And when we look outside, there's nothing but destruction. It's just, wow. And it just blows me out the door. But, I have like sinking feelings occasionally when I'm walking down city streets and stuff. With some, feeling that I'm privy to some knowledge that all of these people walking past me do not know. Wish I could share it with you, but you wouldn't want to know and you wouldn't understand. Maybe you would. It's just so awkward and it's hard. I'm an empath, so I do what I can.
Yeah,
I do what I can, and I'm easy going with it.
Yeah, for me, I've just been pretty much euphoric the whole time.
I have
since figuring it out, but
wow.
It's funny because like finding out certain things are fake. I've seen it like at first. I guess I take it back. With 9/11, at first I was kind of shocked and horrified, but then the realization hit me that okay, if I had to choose one or the other, the official narrative or what I really believe, which reality would I want to be in? I'd choose what I really believe over the official narrative.
Exactly.
Because if the official narrative were true, I would think this is a really crazy, unsafe, whacked out world. And it definitely is. but the way that it is much more interesting. You know, fewer people died, and you know, there's a lot of positives to it.
Sure.
But in the other world thing, I had no control. I had no knowledge, first of all, of what was really going on. But I, you know, if you put that aside, I had no control. You know, that a small group of people can bring down several $1 trillion, you know, a $25 trillion economy and cause $3 trillion of damage and spending, you know.
Yeah, I identified it straight away. I'd read Hegel before I'd seen it, so I was lucky. So I knew it was, I just identified it almost instantly as a dialectic. And none of it made any sense that day. It was the trippiest day ever. And I had terrible dreams that night of firemen going down staircases endlessly and never getting anywhere. It was a horrible dream. See, so it affected the psyche of the entire, you know, place.
Yeah, and I think that's why they do a lot of the things. And what they do isn't real. And I think they have to follow certain rules. And if they can engender fear, if they can engender enough fear and negativity, certain actual negative things that wouldn't have become real become real. Now, you know, that may be true in an ethereal sense, but it is also very true in a practical sense, at least I think, where, you know, if enough people believe this, that you can go to outer space, then you can have a space program, you can have, you know, all these different things. And that's exactly the kind of thing they like to do, because the reality is every little kid who wants to be an astronaut is going to be disappointed, and somehow they feed off that negativity, and that's what the whole farm system is set up for. If you fall into it, you know, you end up just feeding the matrix with this negative energy, you know. And if I heard myself talking like this a few years ago, I would just say, what a bunch of hippie dippy
no,
bullshit.
But it's not.
Yeah, but but
no, I'm the same,
there's
like,
no other way to explain it.
No, exactly. I feel exactly,
you know, to make sense of it.
Yeah, I feel exactly like that. You explained it so well.
Yeah.
I feel like
oh man.
Blown away.
but yeah, on 9/11, I was very. I was troubled by what I was seeing, and certain things didn't make sense. And then finally, when I stopped watching after Building 7 went down, so it was 5:30 p.m.
Yeah, well,
because I was in the same time zone, and I figured, you know what, that was definitely pulled down on purpose. And I thought, because the way the news people were talking about it, so sure, all the people in the background, I could hear them. Yeah, it was, but I could hear them saying, it's going down, and where the lady's talking and it's shown going down in the background, I figured that was just a replay on the screen behind her or something. You know, I made sense of that, but the way they talked, I knew it was a government building because they mentioned that, and I figured, well, geez, if it's CIA, FBI, they're going to have that thing wired from go to blow up in case, you know, they can't let that information and all these secret spy tools and things be absconded with or something. So if there's a security breach or whatever, they probably have like a self-destruct button, you know, and they probably just pushed that button. They knew about it. And, you know, Larry Silverstein or whatever said, you know, pull it, you know, so that was it. So that's what I figured. But then after 2012, I'm doing all this truth stuff a few years ago. I look into it and I find out that the official narrative is that it collapsed on its own from fire from the building collapsed next to it. Like, what?
Nuts, isn't it?
That was a huge one for me, because I was going through my list. That's when I pretty much stopped going through my list of conspiracy things to debunk, because at that point I was just like, wow. And I actually took a month or two break, whatever. But other than that realization, I think I've been pretty much euphoric about finding everything out. You know?
Yeah, man. There's so much more to come. there's so much more we need to find out. You know, it's just so
yeah.
much more about this reality. You know, I feel, you know, the way consciousness works and the way everyone's waking up, and this, maybe, you know, they call it 100 monkey effect or the hive mind. I feel like this spell will just like lift for everyone eventually, and everyone will just see clearly, you know, the absurdity of the ISS. To me, you know, I can't even believe people even talk about it. It's just like a comedy act, you know. They're all in. Can you see the harnesses? They're clearly visible in every single video, you know. And they always got their shoes tucked in, the belt up here to hide the harness. Don't they ever have slackies on or trackies? You know, it's just. And Tim Peake running a marathon. How much salt do we need to add intelligence?
You know, when did you first even hear about ISS? For me, it was after 2012, which is weird because I've always been into space. I've gone to the Kennedy Space Center sometimes. You know, I've always been into that, and I didn't freaking know about the ISS until long after they had been doing their little, this is how we brush our teeth and all that stuff.
I'm not sure.
You know, and it's like that just dawned on me now. It's like, why did I not even think or hear about the ISS until long after it was supposedly built and all that stuff?
You've done my head in.
So what about you?
You've done my head in. You've done my head in. No, I don't.
You don't? Oh,
no,
my.
I don't recall that in my head at any time back then. Not really.
And you're into science and all that kind of stuff too.
Right. I
always
was
been
massive
right
into, you know, into cosmology and astrophysics, and I was into quantum mechanics. I was a proper tech head. You know, I'm an engineering background like yourself. This is how I think. This is why I ended up in the flat Earth. Well, not, you know, decoding antiquity. But wow.
Yeah.
But so much more to come, bro.
Yeah.
So much more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very exciting time for humanity. Definitely very exciting, because, you know, I think, like, you know, people will change their worldview. We'll learn to, you know, get on with one another in this place. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? And like you just said, with all that nasty peer pressure, because Johnny wants to be an astronaut, you know, this sort of, you know, and everyone's like, you know, keep up with the Joneses and this sort of tit for tat society. There won't be any need for it. You know, everyone will just be getting along fine, because there'll be no need, no illness in that way, because we won't be vaccinated, bombarded with poisonous foods, poisonous water, you know, microwave technologies, you know, subliminals or thought forms, or every aspect of the Phoenician mechanism. You know, they use symbols like just pierce the brain like a branding iron. You know, like the swastika they use to great effect, and other symbols throughout history, like the crucifix. You know, these symbols are specific because of the way they react with consciousness. You see, out of the, you know, the geometry of it all. So they're very, very clever in what they have done with it all, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. I see it everywhere. But like,
and the easiest thing to defeat it is, one of them is to not consent to it.
Yeah.
And that's been the battle cry, and I think it's a great one. It should always continue, where you just don't consent. They seem to require your consent to really screw you over.
Don't get to her. Don't give it to them. Don't let them. You just say, when they say, "Do you understand?" Just say, "No, I don't. I'm not going to be understood by you." Because that's what they're saying. Do you want to be understood on? No, I don't want to be. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know, they use all this wordplay to keep you down. You know, no, people just don't have to answer to them. Don't have to be. You know, the way I see it, right, is all of our moral codes and the people we are all written in our hearts. And I think that most people, outside of the brainwashing and the control mechanism, would love to come back home and be good people again. You know, I see this light in a lot of people. It's there, you know, but they're so lost in it all, you know, through whatever addictions and bills and bad marriages and this, that, everything they tie you into, you know. People waste their entire lifetimes in, like, just, you know, useless relationships and stuff like that, you know, 50, 60 years and stuff like that, just gone. Or, you know, useless jobs. What an existence. Is that what we're put here for? So many billions or millions this has happened to in this place. Ridiculous, all of it. Don't need it. When people wake up, it's like Stockholm syndrome is exceptional. I can't even believe that people are just happy to go with it. to be tied into mortgages and everything else and slavery. And, you know, they all have ulcers and die young anyway of heart attacks with stress.
And they know it too.
They know
that's where the consent is. You know, like they'll send little email forwards to each other about, you know, you spend all your time making money, and you spend all your money trying to make more time, and you know, it's like life sucks and then you die type stuff. It's like, well, wait a minute.
I know.
You know, like I mean, I already believed the afterlife would be better and everything. I've always been that way, but it's also, you know, I want to improve life now, here, and in the future. You know, there's no reason to sell out anything, you know, to have something supposedly, you know, in a different time. It's just like it works the same way backwards. If it's a sunk cost, you know, if I've invested my belief in a system that is absolutely playing me, there's no reason to carry on, because, well, I've always believed that, you know. But I hear, you know, I do see that sometimes, but
well, your work will last a long time after you're gone. Don't worry about that. You'll be affecting history a long time into the future. This expose will
you
change
too.
all.
And with your book, I can't wait to see how that
thanks, son.
comes out, that book.
Oh, that's my boy, my son Lawrence. He YouTubes as well. He's an alchemist. He does metal.
Yeah? Or are you showing something on the screen? I still can't see it.
I've just been scrolling through old slides, you know, just so there's something to look at on there. It's pretty cool. Railway stations, apparent Victoriana. But they, you know, this Tartarian quality was beautiful, man. The wrought ironwork, you know, all of it was just so aesthetically pleasing. There's nothing like that now. Absolutely nothing like that now. They took it all away.
You know, Global Vision was looking at cannons. Did you see any of his work on that?
I don't know. I only because I lost my channels. I only resubbed to him last week, and I've only managed to watch one I think, of his videos.
Well, the cannons, you know, if you're making an implement of war, are you going to make fancy little swirls and doodads and doohickeys and diagrams and patterns and flowering things on the cannons? But they're all over the cannons, you know.
It's a bloody good point, that is, you know.
Yeah, he finds that, and he's like, is there, you know, what? He's questioning this, what are they? And I think he's on to something there, because cannons don't make sense, really.
They don't make sense. Neither the cannonballs for the destruction that they show make zero sense. Cannonballs do not turn entire blocks into tiny little pebbles. This is a silly notion for humanity. Stop that. Stop that. And then every single shot, the cannonballs are piled up neatly in pyramids. Like, it's just, what are they for then? I thought you just destroyed everything with them into little pebbles.
Right.
But they don't explode. You know, in kinetic energy, you might get a little sort of spark blast thing, but they, you know, literally, it could come through the window. If it landed right, it lands on the floor in front of you and not take the building up at all. You know, it'll kill you. It's not like it explodes on you.
The same buildings have wrecking balls bounce off of them, but cannonballs can just knock them to pieces. And I started thinking about it, and I started looking around for it. I have never in my life in person seen a cannon shot other than a signal cannon with a blank.
Same.
I looked for visual evidence of actual video, and they haven't, you know, faked it well enough yet. I'm sure they will after this conversation, maybe, but there's no video that I saw of a not World War II, but Civil War era or Crimean War cannon shot ever. It's always a blank or something. They're fudging something, or the cannon fire, the ball doesn't even exit the cannon. It's just a comedy of errors. And there's a skit that I wanted to put in the video, but I think the copyright prevented me. But there was a guy, a comedian, Tim Conway, and he's doing a skit where he's acting like a cannon loader. And it's just this comical display of like 6 or 7 minutes of him fumbling around and trying to lift the cannonball in, and then like when he goes to fire it off, it's a freaking bomb. You know, it's and I did find videos though of people trying to fire these cannons,
Right.
and the reason they don't do it is they split. They rocket.
That's what they report is, you know, entire gun crews got blown to smithereens where these things were so unstable. But all that decoration and you know, ornateness for an unstable steel. Right. It doesn't ring true.
And they left them. They left them all. They're littered. People are digging them up all the time now. So they're everywhere. You know,
you're onto something. You know, because these military processions, you know, if somebody dies, they have all these cannons going off, and they're always blank shells. It's always commemorative, isn't it? You know, and I can't ever remember seeing a projectile come out. I've seen loads of cannons fired, tattoos, things like that, military tattoos. But no, I'm thinking I haven't. You know, so
yeah.
There could be completely different tech going on, and they've hidden from us. You know, why is the you know, the canon in the clergy called a canon? You know, all of these things we refer to something in technology. You know, these, you know, like when you go in, you know, with your troops, let's charge. Well, charge what? You know, it's
charge up,
charge
your fascists. That's what you. Yeah, it's amazing with words. Yeah. The true meaning comes out.
There's so many of them. It's just incredible. Yeah. The etymology of the English language, it never ceases to amaze me.
Broadcast. Well, we're broadcasting right now, but
I'm not live. I'm just recording of Skype. I'll put it up later or something. Yeah.
But it will be a broadcast. But yeah,
cool.
I don't know.
Flat British, Wales, and UAP.
When you're live, you're not evil.
Yeah.
That's what I always say when I go live. I say, I'm going live, but not evil.
Yeah. I love the live event anyway. I have right laugh with all of the peeps, the Flat Earth British epic peeps. We have such fun. We don't take life too seriously, man. That's the thing. People are just down vibration, and they're letting these negative things come into their heads that have been put there from the television. Don't take a genius to work out where you know these people's negative intent has arrived from. It's bullshit television and what other people are telling them and other people's information. They just don't ever think for themselves and think, hang on, is any of this actually true? Because when you look at it, hardly, none of it is. All these terrible things happening worldwide, and I open the window and the birds are still tweeting every day. And it's been like it all my life. And I was in the Merchant Navy for donkey's years. I travelled all the world. I never seen any of this carnage going down. Even in war zones, it was all like, you know, get drunk, go and have fun, and get back to the ship. You know, it's just
I've seen a lot of war story things, and I'm talking real life people, you know, and it's always remote. It's like, you know, I was there, I heard booms, I saw lights flashing, you know, but there were, you know, it's never quite there. You find out, well, they went there and they did laundry for 2 years, and then they got out. A lot of people, like with Korea, a lot of people just landed on the beach, and they stayed on that same beach for 2 years, doing different tasks, mundane, and then they were shipped back. And the one thing that really got me about the Korea story, I heard a veteran talking about it. He mentioned that when they got on the ship, there were storms and different things, and it took like way longer to get there. It was supposed to be like 10 days or something by sea. I don't know. And he said it was like 20-some days. And on the ship, like every day or every other day, they all had to get shots because of the horrible diseases there, you know. And I just thought, maybe it's something really weird going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
how would you know when they got all the military closed down? They got their letters home. They can't write it. Man. And I've heard this as well. I know an old guy who was in Korea. He went there just after mopping up. He said he was just going there cleaning up after apparent war. So really strange.
Yeah, there's one person, or a handful, maybe 2 or 3 people who talked about being in some action or whatever, but
No, my
it
grandfather.
really wasn't a lot.
My grandfather was from 1939, and he came home in 1945 in the war, and he was 6 years in the RAF, and he states he's got 8 medals from all these campaigns, North African campaign, all of them, all of the campaigns. And he says his scariest experience of World War II was being on sentry duty on his own in a graveyard of the entire war.
Wow.
So, what happened?
But all this, that you heard that before 2012. Like all the stories I heard where there was actual action stuff was all before 2012.
You're so right. You're so right. You know, I've talked to people who were in the trenches in the First World War. They were still about when I was a kid, see, and I used to question them over it. Tell me what the trenches were like. You know, I've had a couple of... I had an auntie in a concentration camp, my auntie Aha. She was in Auschwitz. She had a tattoo on her arm, and I couldn't get anything out of her. Well, my mother got a bit out of her. She was lovely. She said that she was working in as a seamstress in a factory. She said it was pleasant, and she said the orchestra was really nice, and so was the cinema. So it's not exactly what we hear.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like Auschwitz.
Oh, it just gets better. The son just brought me a nice spliff, isn't he, Coin? Yeah, that's it. I knew there was a reason why I should have children.
Do you get a tax write-off over there?
Sorry?
Do you get a tax write-off?
No, man. It's CBD's sort of... it's just, they don't really bother anymore. You can get, like, they got like little coffee shops which sell CBD cake, and you can buy buds of CBD at the local chemist, and CBD drops, and everything's gone CBD crazy because, you know, basically they're earning money on it, aren't they? So yeah, it's all going the way. They're not stupid. They know. They're looking at the money that America's earning, and New York State's like revenue shot up when they decriminalised. They're not stupid. They're just testing the ground with CBD. That's what they're doing. So yeah, that's the way it's going here in Britain. But yeah, it's pretty much the same as the rest of Europe from what I'm seeing. They all seem to have the same quality, same as like sort of Amsterdam. Everywhere's the same worldwide. So all these Frankenweeds, which is also a worry, because it's not the same. When I was young, it was a completely different game. You got on, haven't you? Yay! So that was me and UAP live. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. That was fun, wasn't it? Okay. Make sure to subscribe to your Fat of British and UAP. Well, thank you, UAP. He's probably going to come back now. Don't worry, because I'm going to stop this. It's getting late. He's been talking ages. So make sure to subscribe. That was enjoyable. See you soon.